Hello, this is Stephen Dupree of NowEnergetics.com, based on Ewan Method. And today we're going to go over one of the other articles that's kind of interesting. It's a big part of the Ewan Method, working with karmas, and it's something that's very very unique to Ewan Method, because Dr. Ewan has figured out we don't really have to go into deep analysis with karmas, but we can use the real basics of strong and weak to decide and to intuit what type of karma we have in what direction. And sometimes you need to get a little more detailed than other times, but it's enough to just identify the karma to resolve it. So it's just, to us in Ewan Method, it's just another weakness to strengthen and delete the effects of. So let's look at karma real quickly. So if you notice, if you come to the article on the NowEnergetics.com page, there's not really a lot here, because it's sort of like allergies or anything else. It's just another element of Ewan Method that we use, our kind of Swiss Army knife analysis and quick action to delete. And of course, the idea that it works at all is whether you get results, right? It's not whether it's some philosophy or some kind of belief system or something like that. You either get results or you don't get results, right? So people either notice a shift or they don't. So this is one of the quotes from Dr. Ewan. Karma is meant to be resolved. It is not meant to be relived. In a matter of seconds, you should know exactly what your karma is, and you will never have that karma again. And the learning lesson people seem to want to find is the resolving of these karmas without repeating the karmic experiences. So much of what we're told about karma is about repeating the experiences, coming back, reincarnating, having to relive experiences. There's some sections at the bottom here we'll go over with different philosophies of where karma comes from and whether you can inherit karma and all these things. So we'll go over some of those areas. So the way I have it here is I was lucky to get this kind of image for it, because karma really is sort of a boomerang. It's more of a tether with a boomerang as well. So if you have a victim and a perpetrator of a karma, you usually have some sort of tether, and it can go through ancestral chains, that can go through other types of chains, depending on what the particular karmic situation is. So one of the ways that we describe this is what goes around comes around, in the Western world, and that's why the boomerang is a good example of, kind of how this can occur, or some people would call it cause and effect, but it's basically the same thing. You have a tether into somebody, if you're the victim of the karma, you're going to have, some tether into the perpetrator for some time until it gets resolved. And you could be on the giving end of the karma too. It's not always cut and dried. And the problem with that is that you can attract experiences with that kind of karma too. So you want to resolve as many of the karmic experiences in your own energy and your energy from your ancestors and things that you've done as much as possible in this life. Once we're in spirit, we really can't resolve these things. This is why we get ancestral karmas, because when they pass into spirit, there's no physical form in order to resolve these things. We actually have more power in this physical form than we realize. And this is why very often when we check the energy is coming from an ancestor. And, you would think conventionally, the spiritual world, they must be able to do all these wonderful things there. Well, they can't resolve their karmas. That's why they use their energy and kind of knock on our door, create experiences and manifestations in our life in order to remind us that they have some issue that they want us to resolve for them. So that's how it works. May not be what people believe, but that's how it works. So as it says here, karmas are often a primary and mostly hidden source of physical symptoms in our lives. There's a lot of modalities that don't even look at karma, or at least they recognize that something might be karmic. They may go into past life regression, but they have really no way to check the energy to resolve it. And we just see it as another weakness. So much like anything else, if you do that kind of analysis and you come on to the wrong answer, and you're not going to resolve anything. So it's important to get the right answer even with karma. When we use strong and weak, we're still trying to get the right answer. who was it? In what ancestral chain? Was it something that wasn't ancestrally related? That type of thing. So as it says here, karma is just another energetic weakness to identify, strengthen, and delete on the spot. We're not treating it any differently, and we shouldn't. It's no different. So the basics of it, we've already mentioned: a victim and a perpetrator. Could be victims, could be more than one. But you could have all kinds of different karmas, so when it comes up, when you're looking at energy and you're finding weaknesses for folks, many times before you're trying to figure out what to delete, you may need to go a layer deeper and realize that the issue that the person has may be karmic related. And if it's karmic, maybe a good percentage of the time it's not their karmic issue. So these modalities that don't look at ancestral chains and so on, you're not going to be able to hit the button. You may be able to resolve the things in your life, but maybe the ancestral karma is 95 or 98% of it. So they're presenting various experiences to you, but until you actually realize that you have to resolve their karma and not just deal with something that you think is your karma, you're going to resolve 2% of it that's yours. Maybe you've done these things in your life. Maybe you've lied, you've irritated someone, all these things that we talk about here. But if you're resolving 2% of it, you're not really going to resolve that much. You're not going to notice anything for sure. So you want to really look at the areas that are the largest. So we don't judge the karmas. We don't categorize them in some way. Well, if I didn't mean to do it, it's not a karma. Well, it's still a karma. Unintentional act is still a karma. We also have this notion of, we'll talk about later, karma of karmas, was you intentionally or unintentionally, someone else commits a karmic act on your behalf. You don't sidestep that because you have someone else do it by proxy. You still have that karmic energy coming towards you as a perpetrator. So we have to be aware of that as well. And again, by you, I mean, it could be an ancestor, could be a descendant from another lifetime, could be a sibling, could be a spouse from another lifetime, this lifetime, could be all kinds of situations like that. So I've written about this more in other articles. This is the basic karmic article that I'm trying to go over the basic information. So you want to know if something's a karma, you want to know if something's not a karma too. That's very important too, if that's not the major influence. So the most important thing that we need to get at least out there with Yuen method is that we don't treat karma the way other modalities treat karma. There's no need to meet the person to resolve the karma. So as soon as you identify, person may not even be alive, you may have a karma with a person that's passed in some other lifetime, and you have a karma with them from some other lifetime. So it's direct with them, but it's not like you're going to meet up with the person. They're not incarnate anymore. So that's really important to be aware of that, is that, the notion that you have to meet up with, someone, how is that going to happen? Let's say they're in China or something. You don't even know who this person is that you have this karma with, how are you going to meet up with them? So we don't have to meet up with folks to resolve karma. That's really important. So we don't look at really complicated elements of resolving karma. It's just strong and weak, so we're back to the basics of the Yuen method. There's really nothing really deep or esoteric about dealing with a karma, having to figure out, some ritual or something, or read some terminology, or, we don't need any of that to resolve karmas, right? Just another weakness to strengthen. So one of the things that we look at with karmic energies, it happens a lot with ancestral chains, descendant. When I say ancestor too, I mean, you could have a descendant from another lifetime that's not alive now that also could give you a karma, or you could have a descendant from this lifetime, or you could have been a descendant in another lifetime. So it's not. There's no. We have to go where the energy goes weak. And it's enough to identify the person at a very high level, like the ancestor, descendants, spouses, siblings, so on, the relationship to us as an example. And it could be someone who's a total stranger. You could injure someone in a battle or something, and it's really not even, you don't even know the person, right? So it's not, you can have a karmic effects, and you didn't even know the person. So It's not even that you know them. So and some people can actually pick up the karmic effects from the environment. If you're resonating with a similar karmic effect, some sort of injury or something like that, you can definitely resonate with that. And it's not necessarily your karma, but it's kind of ringing your bell. It's like a tuning fork effect. So that's another thing that can happen. So like we say here, karmic energy can come from many sources. It can be our own ancestors. We talked about that. And it can create a symptom in your life. It can actually control your life in some cases, so it's a real palpable effect in your life. And it's not just that it could be a physical thing. It could be a way of thinking. It could be a way that you lead your life in such a way that you think, oh, gee, that's the way I am. And it's really, you're being pushed by the energy, the karmic energy of an ancestor that has some deep karma they want you to resolve. So they put you in these certain situations. They may even put the energy, create the energetic situation that you meet somebody that they have a karma with themselves, or their ancestral chain the person you're meeting might have a relationship to your ancestor in a karmic way. So all kinds of, there's all kinds of scenarios like this. And we can ferret that out very quickly with strong and weak. So some of these other elements, normally you're not going to be able to dissipate it, especially if it's an indirect karma and someone's not incarnate right now, they're past. How are you going to resolve that, right? There's no way you're going to meet that person in this lifetime, right? So you need to be able to resolve these karmas, through any, lifetimes, back through time, that kind of thing. And so we want to do as much as we can. So the other part of this karma article talks about, I've had a lot of questions about this over time, and I've sort of collected up some of the things that Dr. Ewan talks about, but there's always, I don't think he's ever kind of gone through this. There's no such thing as karmic credit. So I try to make that pretty clear, is that if you have some karmic issue with Jim, you're not going to resolve it by giving money away to 5,000 other people, right? If you have a stealing karma with Jim, it's a very specific karma with that person. You don't resolve that karma just by doing good deeds, right? That doesn't work. Karmic credit doesn't exist. So people want to think it's that way. They want to be a good person. That's, hey, be a good person. But, you still have to resolve your karma with Jim. You're not going to get around that. You're not going to get around that boomerang. That one's coming back at you. So just be aware of that. It's good to be good, but it doesn't mean you have some currency that cancels out past karmic things. And that's just the way it is. We need to resolve karmas. They don't just get canceled out in the normal, sort of in our daily lives, especially if they go back through generations and things. So these things often do go back, and we don't want it to get so amplified over time. If something karma exists for many generations and hundreds of years, it becomes a curse for you. So you want to resolve these things, or the energy of that curse gets ratcheted up as the generations go on. You don't want that to continue. So, and I don't know too many methods that can do this kind of deep clearing of profiling and really lassoing up a lot of the similar types of karma. So we're not just trying to, a lot of folks work with karmas, but they may just clear one event, or something. So you may have trillions of those kinds of events, right, back through time. So let's say you're the perpetrator and you're trying to resolve it. If you're on the receiving end, we sometimes call that a negative experience, right? So you have a negative experience of being a victim of a karma, let's say. But anyway, so that's kind of how it works. One of the things that Dr. Ewan has kind of talked about in the past is the three different types of karma. Now, again, we're looking at strong and weak, but we're also looking at, some very basic elements of karma that really aren't that much more complicated. And it has to do with the relationship between the victim and the perpetrator. So we don't talk about ancient texts or beliefs or anything like that. We're still looking at strong and weak, but we're looking, when we want to go a layer deeper, we want to see maybe who the victim and who the perpetrator is more precisely. And when you get a more precise answer, it's more like using a scalpel instead of a sledgehammer kind of thing. So it may, in many cases, you may not have to do that. You just clear the karma. If it's an ancestor, you say ancestral issue, and you automatically sort of lasso the ancestral back through time. And that could have gone through many generations, let's say. And you can check later to see if it's all, if it's strong, it means it's been resolved. But there are times when you want to go a layer deeper, maybe just as an academic exercise. It's kind of good to know that these are the mechanics of the karma if you want to go down to that level. So there are 3 different types of karma. So here we are with the different types of karmas here. And we're just going to talk about John and Mike. So there are 3 types. There's a direct karma where somebody is directly with you and Mike. Now, remember, that could be you and Mike and you're both alive. It could be you and Mike and one of you is passed. So just because you're direct with Mike, it doesn't mean that the person's even around. It could be persons in China or something, so, or, on the other side of the planet, let's say. So partial and direct is only one of you is involved. So somehow you and Mike's ancestor have some issue in another lifetime or something. And a lot of times the ancestor will put you and Mike together in some way. You either meet up with the person, let's say if it's Michelle or something, you may end up meeting and marrying this person to resolve, some karma. So the ancestor actually supplied the energy. If it's a strong enough karmic energy, if it's almost like a curse, they could create the situation that puts the 2 of you together in this lifetime, in this incarnation. And you still may have a karmic issue and you still don't know how to resolve it. So just the fact that they put you together with a partial indirect kind of situation doesn't mean that you and John and Michelle actually know what the karma is they need to resolve. They fight about a particular thing, or they have a situation where a certain element of the karma manifests in the relationship of those 2 people. It doesn't mean they understand what to do. So that could be something that gets inflamed over time because the ancestors are still pushing the buttons there, even though they brought the people together. They may even get more frustrated because they've gotten that close to resolving it, but the people that are kind of the proxy person doesn't know what to do, let's say. So that can happen a lot, where someone comes to you as a client and something seems very, very amplified. It's because, you can ferret out the story is that, well, you have a partial indirect situation going on here. And that the whole reason, you could check the energy, the whole reason why the 2 of you are together is to resolve this karma. And you think it's fate and you think you met this person and all that kind of thing. So, you check the energy, and maybe you tell the person, maybe you don't, you don't want to step on their life, but I mean, you want to know the truth. That's, that could be a story that has truth to it, by using strong and weak. So the 3rd type is totally indirect. So this is a good example of where, again, you may have a situation where you and Mike or you and Michelle somehow meet up in this life. Maybe, same situation. Could be that you never meet up with this person. But if you're both, alive in this lifetime, there may be a case where even though it's totally indirect, there's still energy from 2 sides trying to bring the 2 of you together in some way. You either meet the person or something, or you actually create a similar karmic act. The energy is there for you to have to bring you together. It can also make you act out the karma, right? So, and even the people that were originally involved in the karma from your ancestors think that the 2 of you acting out the karma that they had somehow cancels it out. And even in spirit, the folks that are in spirit that are trying to get you together to resolve their karma, they don't even understand that, that's not going to resolve the karma just because they have the identical, karmic act that, even victim to perpetrator that the ancestors had. It doesn't matter. You have to resolve the energy there. And again, those people may not even know. Those people may not even know that that's what they need to do, right? So that's another common situation where people are brought together and they may not even know what they need to do to resolve it, right? So it's a good good example there. And even, again, the beings that are in spirit, they're not necessarily any smarter than you and me. They have their energy that brings the two of the people together, either partial indirect, total indirect karma. But it doesn't mean that you're going to be aware of that if you don't know the method or something. You don't have you're just an average person in life or something. You're not going to have you're going to think it's just some argument that you have or some issue you have with the other person. If you're just friends, let's say you're not spouses, it could be all kinds of situations there. So when somebody brings you their story of some issue that they have, you got to kind of ferret some of this out sometimes. And sometimes it's useful to say what the story is. It depends on the person. Sometimes they don't want to hear the story, so you just clear the energy and you don't worry about the story. You keep that to yourself. So you have to check the energy of the situation there too. The other elements, so those are the three: direct, partial indirect, total indirect, right? So there's also the notion of karma. So it's another element. And this is kind of when you're doing something by proxy, you're having someone else do it. And whether you tell someone to do it or they just do it on your behalf in some other way, you're still responsible for that karma. We call that karma of karma. So it does come up. We kind of clear it at the same time we clear karma sometimes, but if you go a layer deeper and you realize that, the karmic act, the karma that you ferret out in someone else's energy is the karma of karma, either coming at them or from them to someone else, or indirect. All those different ways that we talked about up here can also, we can layer over that karma of karma, where each of these people were kind of pushed by somebody else to do something. So there's another person in the background that's going to be tethering in here. So we have to be aware of that. It doesn't come up all that often, but it's good to know that. Much like many other elements, you just have to have that in your field, that if it comes up when you're trying to intuit what's going on, you want to be aware of that type of thing. So, and here it says influencing others is karma of karma. So you don't sidestep it by having someone else do your dirty work. So just be aware of that, or someone else in some other lifetime. So resolving karmas. So it's important to know the type and directions. As an academic exercise, sometimes we don't go that far. We just say it's an ancestor and we resolve the karmas, check it again, make sure it's strong. So you're unhooking the tethers in all directions, and you're sending that karmic energy off between the victim and the perpetrator, and they will release those tethers either to you directly, if it's a direct karma, or some indirect where you can check to see if the energy is strong, meaning the karma is resolved. So when we resolve them, we just want to know kind of the type, but we don't have to all the time. If you know it's indirect, it's sometimes saying ancestor is enough. Knowing whether you're the victim or the perpetrator, that's important. Which direction does it come from? It might be in both directions. When you think about it, if you're a boxer or something, well, you kind of got it going both ways, right? You got karma with each other. So you're both victims and you're both perpetrators. So there can be a kind of Don King situation, the fight promoter. You could, there's a situation there where you have karma of karma, but you also have the boxers themselves that they're beating up on each other. So they're creating karmas with each other, both as victim and as perpetrator. So that's an interesting situation that can come up. So just be aware of that. So if we know the type, your brother and that person's ancestor from another lifetime indirect. So you're getting it sideways. Well, that's all you need to know. You put a thought there, you delete the effects of it and send the energy off, neutralize the karma, check the energy again. Is it strong, right? It was weak before, is it strong now? So it's still strong and weak. So as we go down through this here, and then you ask the person if they feel a shift, right? So you do the clearing and then you ask them if they same or different. What are you noticing? So that's the type of thing that you do. So the important thing with resolving karma, that's why I highlighted this here, you don't have to meet or be near the person to resolve the karma, it doesn't matter. So you don't have to continue to pay the price. This is the notion of of having to reenact the karma. We talked about that with Mike and Michelle, or Mike and Jim, I think it is, who the heck it was there. John and Mike. Okay, John and Mike. So just because they continue to act out the karma doesn't pay the price for the original karma, right? So it doesn't make any sense to have them act out the karma, but the energy may direct them to do that because the energy's there, but they don't know what to do with the energy. They don't know that they can dissipate it. So they act out the karma. Well, that doesn't cancel out the debt either. So it actually could make the situation worse. So what we want to do is clear the original karmic tether and event and situation, and that resolves it at the correct level and down through the ancestral chain to you, where you weren't even involved. Let's say it was an indirect karma, you weren't even involved, it was your ancestor. So that's really important. So, again, you don't need to have some kind of equal suffering. A lot of times when people have karma with someone else and they're the perpetrator, they may create a situation in their life where they actually make themselves suffer to thinking that they're going to resolve that karmic debt by equal suffering. So if they did something to someone else, well, if I just make sure that if I stole all your money from an ancestor of yours, 300 years ago, making myself poor to resolve that because it's equal suffering doesn't resolve that karmic debt. So you may have a person in their life that with their energy and knowing that they have that karmic tether and not knowing how to resolve the karma, they may think, well, gee, if I just create this situation, I don't mean consciously, they may unconsciously do that, or the energy may direct them in such a way that they have that kind of lifestyle. And they don't even know why they're like that. They don't want to know why they don't have any money. They just know that this is some weird thing that's going on with their life unconsciously, that tape is playing in the background, their experience is playing out. And because they don't know that's not going to resolve the problem, they might live most of their life that way, right? And they may create and attract situation that create a situation where they're always in debt. They have no money or whatever. So again, unconsciously thinking they're going to somehow resolve this karmic debt by equal suffering. It doesn't work that way, right? So a lot of people suffer needlessly, not knowing that they're the victims of some karma and they don't know how to resolve it, right? So that's a good example. So some of these things can get pretty deep into people's lives. It's not surface. It can take over your life in some cases, and you don't even know it's taking over your life. You think that's just the way that's just fate for you. You didn't have the breaks, don't have a good job or whatever, if it's a money related issue, right? So that's equal suffering. So you want to make sure that there's no judgment, conditions, blame, or grudges. Grudges comes up a lot, believe it or not. So you're looking at two people that, let's say, they're direct karma and they did something to each other. Let's say it's even this lifetime, and it was 30 years ago and they thought they forgot about it or whatever, but they don't live near each other. So that whole distance thing is happening. But John comes to some Yuen practitioner and they try to resolve the karma. And Mike holds a grudge by his energy. So you have to watch out for that, because sometimes when you try to clear the karma, you're trying to neutralize the energy and you're also trying to unhook the tether at the same time, because it's kind of a tether into the other person. But sometimes people don't want to let go of their end of the rope, and we call that grudge energy. So a lot of times the karmas, you have to see if the person notices a difference or not. And sometimes there's a grudge in one direction or the other, could be both directions. So there is the notion that even when you clear the karmic energy of the event or events, there still could be some underlying grudge that's some sort of ancestral grudge that they sort of all like that. It's a cultural thing, it's a family thing. So you may have to clear grudges. So it's not like you're never going to resolve it now because the person's got a grudge. No, the grudges goes weak. So you delete the need to have grudges, right? You clear them back through their ancestry because they probably got it from their ancestors, right? Descendants, perhaps, siblings, whatever, could be in kind of odd cases. It could mostly be ancestors. And so you clear their need to have grudges, and then you check the energy again, see if it's strong. And then you make sure that the tether's been removed. If it's strong, it's good. So these are, kind of at a real high level, we listen to Dr. Ewan all the time, Clear Karmas, and he's doing kind of a template over it, and he doesn't always talk about some of the elements that a practitioner may run into the 1 or 2 layers deeper. And I'm sort of talking about this here because even though it's very, very simple, sometimes we have to go a little bit deeper. Sometimes we go deeper just as an academic exercise, just to know what's in direct karma. Sometimes we have to go deeper because it's grudge energy or judgment or blame. Person won't let go of it even though you've resolved it because they want to blame the other guy, so they have a blaming issue that's stronger than the karma. So you got to sort of figure out the next thing that goes weak when something's not resolving completely. When you ask the person same or different and they're still stuck. So we have to be aware of some of these layers. They're not too many layers. So I think I'm giving you more or less all the layers that I'm aware of that I've run into in my travels. And some of the things aren't necessarily things Dr. Ewan talks about, but you're going to have different shades of this. You may have different things that go weak that aren't listed here. So it's whatever goes weak, really, right? You have to watch the energy. So that's important. Know where you're at with the energy, and don't make any assumptions that everything's just going to clear because you clear karmas, because there's sometimes some layers deeper that you have to go. So the hold on energy is the grudge energy. You resolve a karma and someone's still holding on to it. We call that kind of a need to hold on energy here. That's what this is all about here. And then we check the energy again to make sure that the energy's been dissipated. That's what we're really doing. We're neutralizing that energy. What does that mean? It means as if the act never happened. You never stole Jim's money. It never happened. So you resolve it in such a way that both parties are satisfied and they're not holding grudges, and it's as if the thing never happened, right? So that's what you want. And then that is no longer a tether into the person's life. And if that was one of the issues that was affecting their relationship, not necessarily finances, we're talking about the stealing of money, let's say, as an example, it may not have actually manifested in their life as a money issue. It may have manifested in their life as some other kind of issue, like a relationship issue or career issue or something like that. So it's not always one for one. So this is a good quote from Dr. Ewan. You have to deal with your karma. How do you deal with it? Well, you have to recognize, or at least acknowledge, that there is such a thing as karma and that you can actually resolve it. The whole lesson in life is to have the insight to resolve karma. And if we can't resolve that, then what's the sense of being here? That's why you're here. That's one of the most important things you can do, is resolve the karma of your ancestors and yourself and all the people around you, so people will have a better life. A lot of the bad things that happen in the world, people just have so many karmas that aren't resolved. And these become curses for people. It affects how they act with others. And other people resonate with that energy with similar karmas. It's not a good thing. It's one of the best things we can do in the Ewan method is and I don't know of any other method that does such a good job at resolving karmas, right? Very, very simply. And it doesn't matter how far back the people go. It doesn't matter. So that's the good thing about using this method to resolve karmas. And I kind of say that here, like the folks that will resolve 1 or 2 karmas, you want to resolve all the karmas that you can, as you come into different events that come up in someone's energy during a session. Of course, it's always more to do. So you're going to resolve as many things generally as you can. Karma tend to be a little bit more specific than a general correction. So it's going to be a little bit more work, but you're still using the elements of Ewan method, strong and weak and so on. So the other thing I talk about here is the belief systems. Whether you have any belief system at all, or you have some other, religious belief system, whatever, it doesn't matter your belief system. It only matters what your energy is telling us, right? So that's always the case in every case. So we're only looking at the energy, and we don't really care if someone believes it or not. It doesn't really matter whether you believe it or not. We can still clear the energy, and they should notice a shift. And if belief is required and belief goes weak, then we can strengthen their need to have a belief. Okay, so that comes up as something that's blocking a clearing, we can do that as well. So couple other things here. I just mentioned that a lot of energetic modalities don't even consider karma as a root cause of anything. They just think it's some life issue that is unresolved from the past. It's not, can't possibly give you a pain there. If your ancestor injured someone in the knee 200 years ago, it can't possibly be the reason why your knee is bothering you today. Well, that's not true. So that, and how would we know? We check the energy of that situation, right? So that's how it works. Most energetic methods have no way to connect the right answer needed to resolve the karma. So we just use strong and weak. And by right answer, we mean knowing there's a karma, descendant of another lifetime, indirect, which direction, you're the perpetrator, the other person's the victim. They're looking for absolution from you, but you're just going to clear the energy there. And most energetic methods don't measure whether the karmic energy is primary or insignificant. So you could have karmas that are insignificant in your life. Well, if they come up, why don't you clear them? You know, why would you keep them? You don't want to hang around with your descendants and so on and become a curse for them. You know, you could have a cumulative effect of something like that that could be, you know, end up being very high. So, you know, why not? You find it, why not resolve it? But knowing whether something is a primary reason, you know, whether it's significant, whether the injury to the person 200 years ago, your ancestor injuring someone 200 years ago, has direct correlation to what's going on in your knee in the here and now. You know, it's good to know that. And if that's what it is, that's what you need to clear in order for you to have any kind of resolution or healing in that situation. So some other key points, we talked about this already, I think. People think you need to reincarnate or meet up with the other person physically. You don't need to do that. We prove it just by the results we get. And some cultures and religious teachings believe karma exists, but a person can't inherit karma or a curse from another ancestor or somewhere else, sibling, whatever. And we know that to be true, that we can inherit. And by inherit, it's not like the ancestor that is the perpetrator hands you a bag and it's your bag now. No, it's really still their karma. So you're not quite inheriting it. You're kind of inheriting the energy of your ancestors' karma to resolve because they can't resolve it themselves. So it's inherited, but inherited in kind of the way I'm explaining here is it's more the energy is passed down and not the actual event and the act. And you could, by having influence from that energy from an ancestor, you could try to recreate that event in your life. We talked about the many different ways that normal lay people may take that energy, and actually it creates manifestations in their lives that, you know, they think is fate or whatever. But you're still kind of getting that energy. And if the sooner you clear it, the better. You know, you don't want to be influenced by that. You don't want to be have your life influenced by what, you know, quote unquote inherited karmic energy, let's say, from your ancestor, because they're still waiting for you to resolve it for them, right? So just because they hand you that energy, it could, because they're in spirit, they still want you to resolve it for them, right? So it's still their karma. So that's about the end of this unit here. We're neutral and not limited by any belief system. So we just use our insight, you know, and we find something's a karma, figure out what direction. Is it ancestor, descendant? Is it, sometimes the common ones are ancestors, descendants, but you could have spouses, siblings, friends, strangers. You could have karmas with, you know, just about any other relationship you could have with a person, any possible relationship you could have with a person. So, and the important thing with the karma is, you know, you connect the dots, but when you dissipate the karmic energy, person should feel the shift on the spot, because that tether from, let's say, the ancestor, they acknowledge that karma has been resolved, right? You check the energy of, just say, ancestor put a thought in your mind, and if the energy's strong, then you know they got the message. And a lot of times they don't get the message. So I want to finish up with that, is when someone is in spirit, they're no smarter than you or me. Their energies is pushed down to their descendants or sideways to their siblings, whatever, and someone that's incarnate is getting the effects of that karma, but they need to acknowledge that it's been resolved. Sometimes you have to do it twice. You know, it might be weak after you resolved everything, but the person in spirit, you can check their energy, it's still weak. It's like they don't get the message yet, right? They don't even know that you could resolve it this way. They think that you probably could do something, but they don't get the message on the first try. So you strengthen that thought one more time, and you check ancestor again and see if it's strong, right? So they get the message. So you already cleared the energy, but they're still holding on. It's not a grudge energy. They're just like, duh, you know, they didn't get it the first time. You did all the work. Make sure they're not still holding on to their end of the rope. So I hope you found this somewhat enlightening and entertaining. There's kind of, karmas are simple in the sense of Yuen method, but they can be kind of entertaining at times because some of the karmas can be funny. Some of them are kind of not so funny, so you don't get into the details sometimes with folks, but we should be able to identify and resolve all these karmas that we can identify that affect us in our lives, or karmas that we've created in past lives. We should be able to do that very, very quickly and very easily. And the way you notice is by the results. That's how it works. So it's no different than any other thing that we clear in Yuen method. So that's it for now. It's just kind of a long karmic session, but it's important. This is one of the most important things we do when we work with ourselves, our own energy, and with other people and their energy. It's some of the most important work that we can do is to resolve karmas for folks. So be aware of this and always be checking the energy. Always be checking the energy of the situation. Even what someone presents to you, always be checking the energy. Karmas will come up all the time. So thank you for listening, and we'll see you on the next video.